Hey, this time I'm back with Sam, and we are going to look at the underdogs of ESL Pro League Season 7 Finals. Specifically, there are three teams here I don't really know that much about. They are OpTic, NRG, and Space Soldiers, but Sam over here has watched a decent amount of online games, or a lot of them, and that's where most of these guys have played. So I'm going to pick his brain, try to figure out what it is about these teams. Do they have a shot? Or what are the win conditions for these particular teams? So I guess we'll talk about the one with the longest history, Space Soldiers. They've been around for a pretty long time at this point.
Yeah,
Like I'm not exactly
this roster.
Yeah, this particular
I
roster has
think
been around, right?
I think about a year. Yeah.
Yeah, been around for a year. Has always done pretty decently online, but has only had like one or two upsets I can think of on LAN. The most notable being the Major, right? And they were supposed to play at IEM Sydney, but they had visa issues. They also have visa issues here. If you didn't see that, one of their players can't play.
Which one?
Calyx, I think, is out, and
Okay.
Despe is in.
Okay.
Right, so that's obviously going to change a bit of how we think they're going to perform here, because obviously players changed out. But I wanted to ask you, I think Space Soldiers isn't that good of a team, but that's also because I don't really watch them, so that's actually like more of an ignorant, like uninformed opinion, just based off of what I've seen. So what do you
Right.
think? So tell me, what is it that is good about this team? Because they lost Cobblestone.
Right. Well, in real terms, they weren't that amazing on Cobblestone. So, like, if you look at they're famous for being good on that map, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that they were incredibly successful on that map. Like, I don't think that was a dominant map for them. It was doing them that many favors. Like, I think that they would lose that map almost as much as they won it
Okay.
recently, anyway. So that's unfortunate. They should also be in team makeup very good on Dust 2. So I'm not too worried about that map change. Um, what are they good at? I think that this is difficult. What they're best at is their individual players, like by far. Like
Mm-hmm.
in terms of firepower depth, they're one of the deepest teams in the top 15.
Okay.
Um, like like the worst player is Engine, who's a support player, and he's fine. He's like better than most support players. Like he's better than Fuckley, stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. So, and then Major is one of the best fragging in game leaders in the world. Like he might be the best, to
At
be
this
honest.
point,
Like
yeah, because like
yeah,
Tarek no longer in game leading and
right.
stuff,
That's
right?
true. That's true. So yeah, Tarek isn't in game leading anymore. A rival might be like Angel, but I think he's better than Glaive, um, better than Zeus by far.
We're
Yeah,
not counting
maybe
Coldzera, obviously.
right. I guess maybe Chris J would be similar,
Mm-hmm.
but Major anyway. So the point is, Major just plugs himself wherever he needs to be in his team strats. So sometimes that's entry, sometimes that's lurk, and he does well everywhere. Like he's good on drop and cobble, but he's also good, during and execute entering. So super versatile player. I really like him as a player.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other boon that they have is that their players are kind of crazy and arrogant. So like Zantares is the famous one, but he's not the only one. They really like to take aim duels and push through smokes and do crazy shit. And generally speaking, that works out for them. So that's probably their biggest boon. They're similar. Like if I had to compare them to a team in terms of style, if you take away some of the tactical genius, which might be the point, but they're similar to SK. Like they'll run a default, and they'll wait for someone to make a play, and then they'll make a call around that play. Normally
Okay.
that's Antares. Um, so they're really good at playing that kind of style. But anyway, there are reasons why that doesn't work on land. But
Yeah,
the
there
point is,
are a
there's
lot of reasons. Um,
well, the point I want to make is that their individual stars are also good on land. So like this is also a strength that they have on land. Like Zantares is great on land. He has a 1.24 rating overall on land, which is incredible, right? That's like Nico. And so Zantares is very good on land. Calyx is decent on land. He's probably
mhm.
the worst of the three stars on land. And Paz is also pretty good on land. So
Yeah.
that's their strength on online and on land.
So their individual skill is probably their best suit. And in terms of map pool, I'm gonna assume they're mostly like around skill based maps, or maps that we can play more around skill. Is that a correct
Yeah, well,
assumption?
it's like I feel like it's more like they play all the maps the same way.
Okay.
So, so we could get into how they play. Like the biggest, the biggest problem with Space Soldiers is that they have very little tactical depth. So this is when I asked Major, who's their in-game leader, how they play. Like what makes Space Soldiers special is how I asked it, but in French. But that's how I asked it, and he said we play to translate. We play simple CS, but CS that works, and
Okay.
that's great. It's definitely true. They have very simple, like they're effective at trading, and they do all these things well. I feel like Major has been using these players and teaching them fundamental Counter Strike, so they play relatively sound fundamental Counter Strike. But like because of their tactical simplicity, they can often get exploited. A good example was at the Major, they played two maps against Mouse. They played one on Mirage, and Mouse on Mirage,
Mm-hmm.
and they started trying to contest mid early on their T side, and they got killed over and over again because it's Mouse. So then all they would do is leave Major standing there watching for someone to peek. But Mouse Sports knew that he would just stand there over and over again, so they killed him like 3 rounds in a row with Chris J peeking after Oscar. And it's just like there's no adaptation really. There's no, and so I don't know if that comes down to Major as a caller. It probably does, but it just feels like they just had nothing to they had nothing to counter the effective strategies for map control. And so that's quite disappointing, because ideally you'd want someone to be able to punish Mouse doing the same thing over and over again, like putting 3 people in mid. You should be able to counter that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so that was problematic. And the second thing that's problematic, if we can get into that, is sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm just like bursting through, because the way that I set up is that I watched Space Soldiers a bunch online, and I thought that they looked really awesome. And then I watched them on LAN at the when they bombed out Marseille, right?
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh god. So I'd already started writing the article.
Yeah.
And I watched that, and so I had to change my tone a little bit. It was very frustrating.
Wasn't nearly as optimistic, I imagine.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. But it was very disappointing. Not because the players played worse. It was a bad LAN. It was like they played both their matches in a day, and it was a bad day. That's fine. Like I went back to watch their things at the Major, where they had good results, but they had the same problems. And so one of the biggest problems they have, which is their tactical simplicity, but by far the biggest is that they have massive chokers, and like it's just so bad. So like at the Major, they lost I think 3 maps. 16-13 or 16-14, and then they completely choked like I think it was a 14-10 lead against Fnatic in that final that they played with them, and like I think it was WESG.
Yeah.
And it was like what happens is when they play such fine fundamental Counter-Strike, but it completely goes to shit when it's later in the round. Like you'll see people like Pazos or Calix is probably the biggest one, who just make random peaks that they really should make lose their discipline, and they just drop so many rounds when that happens, and it's just like it's really sad to watch actually. And so to me, it's not so much like the point of the article was to try to change people's opinion of Space Soldiers as onliners and brand them as chokers instead.
Yeah. Well,
because
it's true. It's true though. Like I remember Westside, like they really choked hard on that one map against Fnatic.
Yeah, the last map.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really bad. So like to me, that's the big issue, and to me, that's less bad than being an onliner, because I feel like they're onliners insofar as their results are concerned. But I think that like when I think of an online player, I think of someone who can't translate their skill on LAN or their style. But I think all their players are fine. They're pretty good on LAN. Zantaros is great on LAN. I just think that their players, especially Calix and Pass, really struggle in those pressure situations to keep composure. And we've seen other teams have that problem, like Mouse last fall had that issue. And eventually, as you start getting more and more good results, you get more used to that pressure, right?
But here's the problem with that idea, I guess, is because like actually I agree with you about the entire online thing, but like you're saying, you need good results to get that confidence, right? But you've already said their other problem has nothing to do with online or on land. It's like their tactical leadership or their teamwork or whatever you call it breaks down, right?
Yeah.
Like they're one dimensional. So I don't really
Yeah,
know how you get that I don't really know how you get that win to get the confidence.
right. So I get what you mean. Like they won't be making a lot of finals.
Yeah.
But I do think that the simplicity of their play is a benefit when they're playing a certain kind of team.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're playing against the best teams, let's say if you're playing against Astralis or if you're playing against Mouse, you're probably going to get countered and shut down. But if you're playing against like North, right, or if you're playing against...
first off, North is not getting to any lands. Let's be realistic.
That's true, but like let's say you're playing against G2 or someone like that.
Okay, yeah.
Or like just Hellraisers, some pretty good teams, but not amazing teams. They're going to be way more susceptible to your style, and I think that against any team, the like Space Soldiers can do quite well. In terms of rounds, and they have, like, if you look at it, what I did in my articles, I looked at all their online their LAN results, and I was like, well, they did pretty well on LAN until that disaster at Marseille, which was just 2 maps in 1 day.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, if you look at the whole brand of results and not just that one, it looks like they should be making top 8s and stuff like that, and I think that that's what we're going to see out of them after this summer. That, like, hopefully they attend a few LANs with their full roster.
Yeah,
but Calix is probably, out of all the players, I'd say Calix is the most replaceable in terms of his current form.
But who would you replace him with? Like, I don't really know that many Turkish players. That's why I'm asking.
No, you don't need to make a roster move. But what I'm saying is that, like, he's replaceable insofar as, like, okay, well, they have a sub, but like it's probably
he's the least impactful of the 5 players on that.
Of the 3 stars.
Of the 3 stars, okay.
Yeah, so like he's more of a kind of lurker. Kind of player, but he's the one that chokes the most, in my opinion. He's by far the least experienced of all of the players.
Yeah. And
so to me, he's fine, but like he's like, if you lose Antares, if you're Space Soldiers, you're probably fucked.
Yeah.
If you lose Paz, you're probably fucked. But Calix, it's fine. So they should be fine at this tournament. Like, but what I'm trying to say is that they should be a team that's a top 10 team. Like, they should be a top 10 team.
At least for now. Like the argument for that is obviously it's always relative to the time period, like how many good top 10 teams are there at a particular time. So at least if we're talking about this particular time period, like I can see it just because like there's like a huge mess going around outside of like Astralis basically. I think we're due for like another shuffle very soon. Yeah.
Well, what I was saying in the article is that I think that there's a cluster of teams that are going to take over the old teams.
Guards.
So teams like Virtus Pro, teams like North, they're just like degenerate at this point. Yeah. And I think that you're going to see teams like Hellraisers, teams like NRG, and teams like Space Soldiers kind of like go over them. So the teams that were like 10-5, you're going to see quite a different makeup for those teams. At least I hope so. Because that would be very exciting.
Like here's the problem, I guess, is like I think SK is going to break up. But if they break up, as I imagine they're going to break up, that's going to make like 2 very strong Brazilian teams.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
like
the thing is, you have to consider who they're going to play with, right?
Yeah, that's always a question. Or like maybe Fallen goes off and tries to become like a leader using English or something. I'm not sure, but yeah I feel like
or Cold Zero.
Yeah,
Cold Zero said he wouldn't mind playing internationally, but like it's difficult. Like, it's not a clear roster. Like, if the French are going to break up, there's going to be another fucking roster. It's going to be the same, okay. But with the Brazilians, because there's so many issues with like KNG, Lucas, and Henny, who are like 3 of the 5 players, best players under the SK team, it's kind of a clusterfuck. So
yeah, that's true.
Anyway, but what I'm trying to, like, I think they're a pretty good team, so they should be treated by the community as a pretty good team. The results are that of a pretty good team.
Well, I mean,
so I hope
even when like North was a pretty good team, they were not treated like a pretty good team. So it's hard to control that, right? So
but sure, but what I'm like, I feel like Space Soldiers are like a punchline, and I understand that at Marseille they really didn't help.
That was a punchline. Like, listen, they could be a pretty good team, but that tournament was a punchline. Like,
yeah, but I think that if you look at the major result and you look at WSG, they look good. Like they almost beat Fnatic. They outplayed Fnatic in a best of three.
And the way you
So
described their strengths, it sounds like they would be a upset team against Fnatic specifically because of the way they
yeah,
play, right? Aim duels.
yeah, they would, because I think they have more skill than Fnatic does. So
Mm-hmm.
the only player on that team that I feel like is good against Space Soldier stylistically is Crims, because JW, JW
Would play
is
directly
not.
into their strength and not as
Yeah,
good.
right. He's less skilled than a player like Xantares or a player like Paz.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I feel like they have a good stylistic matchup against quite a few teams. I just think they have a bad stylistic matchup against teams that are tactically deep. So teams that can adapt to what you're doing. If you can't adapt to what they're doing, you're
Mm-hmm.
kind of fucked. And they haven't. I don't know why they don't do this. Like when I was talking to Major, it seemed like he was making a point of it being simple. So I don't know if it's that he can do more, but he feels like the players, because they're not, veterans or anything even close to veterans, he doesn't want to put too much pressure on them in terms of strats and burden of knowledge. Maybe,
Or
but
maybe it's like the
they
players. It could just be like the player's own choice, you know?
right, or the players are just dumb. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
like
always possible.
it's always a
Like,
combination, right? Like it's always
yeah,
like some weird compromise between the leader and the players.
but
But we
I
don't
think,
we don't really know if Major's that kind of
yeah,
leader, right? Or at least
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. Anyway, point is they should be a top 10 team. They should be able to do some damage at this event. They might not, but
They might not just because of the standard thing, but also because like the group,
who are they playing against first?
Renegades.
See, that's an interest. I think they should be able to beat Renegades,
I think they
admittedly
can,
with their
but
full
like it
rosters.
really depends on Nifty, I guess. If he like really goes off again,
Right?
like
Yeah.
if he goes off like that, like it doesn't really matter because he's like the best player on that server. If he went that high, but he rarely does
Right.
that.
Right. But
Um,
I think Renegades is a good example of a team that can't get punished
mhm.
by Space Soldiers, because they're the kind of team that, or at least Nifty is the kind of player that's going to go for that sort of aggressive peak. And Paz and Zantares are the kinds of players that can one tap operas.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they're going to take those aim duels. And
Like
so to me, that's the kind of team. That's exactly like teams like OpTic, teams like Renegades, teams like Heroic, teams like
SK right now.
SK. They're exactly the kind of team that that Zantares and Space Soldiers should be able to beat. So
Yeah, but I mean, like the problem with here's my problem with this is like second round they run into Liquid most likely, and Liquid is a tactical
yeah,
team, so I feel like that's done. And
yeah,
if
that's a tough
in the
one.
scenario you've built up, like that's it, right? Because they do adapt, but they themselves
Yeah,
have a bit of the choking issue, but not nearly as bad as I've seen from Space Soldiers at least.
yeah.
And
Well,
then they're not beating
that's
Astralis, let's be real. But I think
no,
Astralis goes through, and then Liquid goes down, and then Liquid beats them.
right.
Actually,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
wait, no, it's three out of the five. So I guess the team they'd have to beat is NIP. You think they could beat NIP to get out of the group?
yeah. They could, but I mean, I don't know if they're like
Favored?
a 75% favorite, but they can beat NIP. Like that's
Yeah,
exactly the kind of team that is like Space Soldiers,
yeah.
right?
But like
So I think,
Dennis is fucking crazy, man.
yeah, but I mean,
Like,
see the thing, like they both have streaky players.
mm-hmm.
So like who is the best player on that server, right? I think the most consistent and the best player on that server is Antares, and if you can't, maybe that's a bold statement, I don't know, but I think that you need to, like, if you're going to if you're going to shut down their T side, actually, and their TT side,
Yeah,
you're going to need to counter Zantares. Like if you cut off Zantares from having any entry impact at the opening round, at the opening of a round, you're going to beat them. But that also requires you to be smart enough and adaptable enough and flexible enough to realize what Zantares is doing and stop him, which is hard because Zantares is a really good player. And I don't think that like NIP is going to be able to do that. Like I don't think any of their players, except for Get Right, the
like
kind of player
like Get Right probably could, but I don't know if they plays the right positions to stop it. Like, I don't really
yeah.
know what positions
What I mean is
they
that
play.
it's,
Right,
it's
so
not like Draken is going to
no,
be
Drake Kid
very
is not the guy.
adaptable.
No,
So actually players like Draken and Dennis seem like the kind of players that would get caught out and frustrated by
but I mean,
Antares.
at
So
least in the case of Dennis, is like it's a coin flip as to whether or not he wins or loses. At least,
yeah, no, that's true. But like you have to. Like the reason I build up Zantares because in terms of skill, like Zantares is legitimately like a top 5 player.
All right.
So, but the problem is, and well, at least for him, the boon is that because he hasn't played a lot of lands, like
Nobody really
players
knows.
aren't. Yeah, well, players aren't super aware of the kind of tendencies that he has.
Mm-hmm.
Like like unlike they have like let's say a similar player like Stewie 2K, right?
Yeah.
Like they know what Stewie 2K does. They know his tricks, but they know much less on Chariz's tricks, and so he has a massive advantage in that scenario. So,
All right.
anyways, the point is they could get out of this group. That would be fun. I would be vindicated.
All right. Sure, but like, would you really be vindicated? Because like the stand-in thing, like that changes a bit maybe.
Well,
But
they should be better because of a stand-in, I guess.
like, should they really be better because of a stand-in? I don't know.
No, they should. No, what I mean is that they should be better because of a stand-in, especially
Oh.
since Despe was a player that used to play for them. If
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not
true.
mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they cut this guy, so they should be better without the stand-in.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's pretty bad.
Anyway, here's my. All right, so the way you've laid it out, though, like, and I actually think there is going to be a shuffle. Do you think Centaur is going to be in the shuffle? Because you're saying he's like this ridiculous player, right?
Yeah.
And as far as I know, he does speak English. Like I know Tarek tried to steal this guy at some point.
Oh, he does. Does he speak English?
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. Like he tried to get him to NA team at least.
Okay. Well, I know he speaks a bit of English. I don't know how fluent he is, because I know that they call him Turkish. And like Major speaks better English than he does Turkish. So I think that they would, if they all spoke very well, good English, they would all call on English. But yeah, maybe like, he could be. I think it would be more exciting if there was a shuffle into Space Soldiers than
You
out
mean
of Space Soldiers.
Woxic?
Yeah, like I think
But
that you.
I would never. I would. Hellraiser would never do that. You see, you know how the contracts work, man. Like, it's a
Sure, but what I'm saying is that if I'm Woxic, right, like I think that Angel's probably a better in-game leader than Major. I mean, I like both guys. I'm not in the team, but that's the sense that I get from watching the teams that they have. But like if you just look at the other players in that team, like there's no riflers on Hellraisers are as good as Antares and Paz. So it makes sense if you're. But then again, he never joined.
he never joined to begin with, right? Like maybe there's some weird like French level politics going on there.
Boys, if Woxic joined them, because one of the things about Space Soldiers, they don't really have an opper.
And Woxic is an opper.
Yeah, so actually they're kind of famous for running five AK strats, which is kind of bad, in my opinion. But
like it's only bad if you don't have any kind of fallback. I think.
Right. Well, they can op. So like Paz can op. He ops a decent amount, and like Major can op, but like they don't have a star opper really. So I think that would be a really awesome. Like I think that they would legitimately be a contender, or at least like a sub contender, kind of like Fnatic is right now. They would kind of be like that if they got that move.
I don't know. It's very hard. I guess it's very hard for me to say that just because like if you want to be like a one-dimensional team, like the way you describe them as, like you have to be like exceptional in a specific area. But I haven't like seen enough of these players to say they're that skilled.
Well, no, I don't think so. I just think you need smart players. So, like Fnatic is a one-dimensional team.
Yeah, but they have very smart players, right?
But the players know how to make the kinds of decisions that lend to success. Like I hate GW as a player. Like I like him as a person. As a player, I really don't like watching him. But JW does find more openings than he does deaths generally. And when he finds those openings, they know how to take advantage of them. They know how to call around opening kills, and they know how to close out games. So they're very fundamentally sound team, and they have players that can find openings.
Yeah, but they also have like sure.
They have 5 years of experience.
They have like huge amount of experience. Not only do they have experience, they have like that it factor, you know? Like the clutch factor, like that doesn't necessarily exist in every player. Like how many players are going to win like multiple major titles like these guys have? Like pretty unlikely.
But my point is that like even ignoring like them Fnatic winning a title, if I think of Fnatic, like I don't think Fnatic is mega clutch when they win like best of threes to make quarterfinals or semifinals, right?
Yeah.
And I think that kind of team, that's the kind of team that we could expect Space Soldiers to be, especially if they have a roster.
If they had Woxic.
If they had Woxic, yeah. Even if they don't, they could still play like Fnatic and be fine. But I just don't think that like right now their players are too young to expect them like to understand when's the right time to do a certain thing.
Mm-hmm.
So some players are naturally good at that, but like
Some
you,
players never learn that. Some players do. It's like
yeah,
it's a gamble, man. It's a gamble.
right. I think Paz is pretty good at that, but like Zantares is crazy. Like so it's not like he's not gonna stop, and that's a problem.
I mean,
If you want
it's
like if Fur never stopped moving, if Fur had no patience, if Fur had no patience, he wouldn't be Fur, right?
Yeah.
So Zantares, anyways, but like and Calyx also needs to be better. But anyway, so the point is that those players need more time, but I think over time they should be with land experience. They should develop into a pretty good team.
Okay. All right, we will see. We'll see if you turn out right or wrong. Like so many others, we will rewrite history as to how it works, depending on how the predictions went out. We'll go to the next oldest team, NRG. Now this is basically, I find this team very funny personally, just because first of all, NRG started off as a joke in CS:GO, and has been a joke for a long period of time. But then once they got Daps, like Daps did that weird thing he always does, where it's like, okay, it's time for me to scout all these young talents and find which of them work, and then keep going through them until like, he gets the right combination, and he's finally found the right combination. He has Breezy, he has Ethan, he has Cirque, most famously, and then he has a not so good Fugly, but you got to fill out the roster somehow. And he does have some experience. So what do you think of this team?
I was way higher on them until I saw their best of 3 against G2.
First, wasn't that? Well, you mean Daps, or you just mean the team?
The team.
Okay.
Yeah. So no, I think Daps did a pretty good job with this team. I think anyway, picking those 3 players in Breezy, Ethan, and Cirque is pretty remarkable, especially Cirque. Like that's just what
like,
a pickup.
Yeah, like as far as I can tell, like Daps might be the best scout in NA.
Yeah, it was interesting. He did an interview with Max Mellett about, and Max asked him like, "How did you find Cirque?" It was just like, "Oh, well, when I look at oppers, I look at movement, and Cirque has ungodly movement, and NA oppers have shit movement." So that was a tell for me, and like it is pretty hilarious how good Cirque's movement is. Like you just beat almost everywhere, but so he is an amazing scout. He has a pretty good roster, but I'm not so high on the team after
losing to G2, because that G2 was iffy.
It's more like their first map was pretty problematic in my opinion. So they won Nuke, which was G2's map pick, and that was fine. But they lost their 2 best maps, or 2 of their 3 best maps against a pretty bad team. So they lost Overpass and Mirage. Their their other best map is Inferno. But like they shouldn't have lost Overpass, and they lost 13-16, and they also Cirque had that really stupid messed up defuse where they lost 3 rounds because he did that.
Yeah, the Kusta.
Yeah, and that was really unfortunate. So maybe that map's the write-off, but the Mirage is inexcusable. They lost 16-7 against G2 on Mirage. They looked like shit. Like it was poorly called, in my opinion. They kept doing executes that weren't working. They kept doing A executes. They would take mate control, but they wouldn't push through connector, and so they were just pushing through ramp, and they were getting mowed down. And they had like 6 rounds on their T side where Fugly was the last one alive, trying to clutch like a 1v3. That's not a win condition.
No.
So that was very upsetting. I thought that their players on that map looked pretty bad. Like I thought that Ethan just took so many aim duels that he should not have taken, like against Kenny S. Like he re-peaking Kenny S. Shit like that. Like he was like, and like Ethan at this event had like a 30% attempted opening kill rating or percentage, which is extremely high. That's like the highest you'll see out of any player, like 30%.
Okay.
But he had like a 25% success rate, which is the worst you'll see ever.
So he's just giving out free kills like ATM.
Yeah, exactly. So like he had a pretty good rating at the event, but like Ethan was acting or he was playing like he would against much worse players, and he got severely punished, especially in this map. But he got severely punished over the whole event for trying to take game duels with players that were just you can't repeat those players. If they know where you are, you're gonna get killed. And I thought that was quite upsetting. But they kept just doing really shitty executes. They got ecoed over and over again across all 3 maps. I didn't think they had a very good. I didn't think they had a very good event, even though they had that exciting
match against Astralis. Yeah,
but I don't think they looked very good.
And even in the Astralis one, basically it's like, wow, how many times are you really gonna get Daps to top frag for you? Like, come on, that's very unlikely. And Daps was getting like all the impact kills in that map. Like that was fucking crazy.
And, I mean, Daps does get like for example in the NRG thing, the first round they won after Pistol was a 1v3 by Daps.
Yeah,
which will never happen.
I mean, it'll happen, but it'll be like once out of like 100 times.
Yeah, I mean, and he got a 1v3, and that was 3 of his 6 kills over the whole map. So 37 ADR. So the point is, it wasn't pretty. It was a really bad map, and it was one of their best maps. They should not have lost that map. And they looked like figured out. Like they looked like they didn't know what to do. They couldn't get anything going. They didn't want to contest mid for some weird reason, or they didn't want to push the connector. It was kind of, I don't know. It was one of the maps where you're just like, well, you're not, if you're really a good team, you're not gonna have maps like that. Like, so anyway, so that was very upsetting to me, especially your first map pick in a crucial elimination best of 3. Like, you shouldn't be just getting shut down 12-3 on your T side. So yeah, I'm pretty down on them. But we can talk about the good things about them as well. I'm just like,
all right. Well, I guess the biggest thing they have beyond the fact that Daps can apparently scout and keep finding young players is Cirque is a pretty good opper. I still think he's a bit inexperienced on LAN. Like I saw him miss a lot of shots he shouldn't have, but I'm not sure if that's like LAN jitters or if that's just like his style, like because he's such a fast shooter.
No, he hits a lot of shots. Like online, he doesn't miss very much at all. Like he's one of the fastest and most accurate operators online. I thought he got caught by a lot of timings.
Yeah,
and so it just, to me, it seemed like he didn't have a good read on what was going on. Like he didn't know where players were going to be. He rotated at weird times. Like he would throw smoke as an execute was coming in, so he would be able to get the shot he's supposed to get. So it just seemed like he didn't have a pulse on the game very well.
Yeah,
or a very good pulse. That might change, but I thought like he did fine. Like that, like I think that it's comforting that he still did pretty well overall in the event.
Yeah. All right,
but
so the other talent I guess we'll talk about, because we already talked about Ethan and Cirque. Was there something else you want to say about Cirque? Actually,
well, I think that one thing we should say about Cirque is that NRG do kind of rely on Cirque being like one of the best operators in the world to have great results.
Yeah.
So until we see that transfer, it's going to be near impossible for them to really beat teams like Astralis or beat teams like Mouse or beat teams like Fnatic. So that's definitely that's the necessary condition for the success. That if Cirque is doing well, so that we need to track that before anything else to see if they're going to be a very good team.
Okay, and then the third player, like this guy's actually been talked about a long time, Breezy, as some potential up and comer. What did you think of him? Like I just thought he was fine, but like he wasn't lighting me up, so to say. But I didn't watch all the games because there weren't that many games to watch.
Yeah, I thought, well, you don't want to watch the maps against Booth.
Yeah, definitely don't want to watch those. That just gives you a false impression.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I thought that Breezy is an interesting player because he's a really strong entry player, but he's not the kind of, so there are 2 kinds of players that are really aggressive. There's players like Apex that are kind of hard entries and aggressive CT players, and then there's players like Rain or Fur, who I call like control players or connector players, or players that kind of like they're the ones that go aggressive on your default, like around connector, on Mirage, for example, or stuff like that. And he's definitely, so what I want out of Breezy is to be a really effective control player, but because that's his skill set. And the same thing with twists. That's the kind of player that he should be, but that really isn't the kind of player he is right now. He's just a hard entry, at least from what I've seen. And
I mean, like,
he did.
When you talk about that control style, though, it's actually very hard to do. You know?
Oh no, it is. Yeah.
Like,
you need a lot of game sense.
Because like either you're too aggressive, you die, like, and you turn into Ethan,
Oh yeah.
or you're too passive and you get nothing done, and you turn into Happy.
Yeah. Right. No, that's true. But it's a very short line, or like thin line.
Mm-hmm.
But like what you need is strong game sense and really really good aim. And players like Twist, and you also need like the being comfortable with dying, because you're going to die quite a bit. And Breezy has those things, so I just want him to be in that role. But right now he isn't in that role. I didn't think that he had a bad event by any means. In fact, I think statistically he probably had the best event out of all of them. But he wasn't.
He wasn't impactful.
So
like, it was fine. It wasn't.
So he had good. He was good during the executes and during that. But what I mean is that by control players, that like what I want out of him is to give a little bit more between the executes. And I don't know if he's not doing that because Daps doesn't want him to do that. He doesn't want him to make individual plays. But I thought that it was sorely lacking out of NRG to make individual plays early. And normally you'd look at Breezy and Cirque to make those plays early.
Yeah.
So like, he had a quite low attempt for entries and stuff. So yeah, it was just pretty disappointing. But he, in terms of aim and in terms of skill, like he did translate onto LAN very well. Like he was a good player for them. But he wasn't a star.
All right. So here's the thing. I'm not actually as down as you are on NRG, but that's not because I actually think they're good. It's just because I give each team, each lineup actually, like 3 live tournaments to show me something. Right. And then for that point, that's like enough data for me to like give a strong judgment one way or the other. So when we talk about IM Sydney, there is the fact that not only was this their first LAN, but it's also their first LAN with jet lag. And I'm going to say, like, at least, actually, I don't know beyond Daps if any of them have ever traveled this far.
Oh, that's a good point.
So I
maybe Fugly,
maybe Fugly, but I don't think even he's done it that long. So like I can kind of like wave that one off. Like, okay, you went to Australia. That's actually like a gigantic time difference. And then you played decently against Astralis, played bad against G2, but that's within a 2-day time span, right? And this is your first LAN. 3 of your guys are basically new to LAN. Actually, 2 out of 3. Ethan's been there before, but not necessarily. A little bit, yeah. But not necessarily like a heavyweight, right? So, in that sense, that's like the reason I'm not as down on them, is because they still have time to prove it, right? It's still pretty early in their careers, and the fact is, like, the pivotal players on this team are the young ones, so they're gonna need the more experience, just like Space Soldiers.
I guess it's just like, and because of NRG's online results, and because of how good they looked, and that you thought that they were really a team that could potentially be like inject themselves right into the top 4 with Fnatic, Mouse, and Astralis, right? And because of their performance against G2, it looks like they're not there yet. So you could still be like, oh yeah, they'll be a top 10 team probably, and all that. But it doesn't look like they're going to be an immediate.
You had higher expectations of them.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I didn't have that. I didn't have that much high expectations, because like unless you've proven it to me before, like Astralis did this before, right? Like last year, before they like destroyed everybody, they were getting crazy online results, and then they translated directly into LAN. But like, there's been plenty of teams that have had pretty good online results, never translated to LAN. Like famously, Envious is the one I think of the recent times. So like it was hard for me to say one way or the other. So
yeah.
All right. The last team is one that just formed. It was a I don't know how you want to describe it. A Danish coup d'etat, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's not bad.
Yeah.
A clusterfuck is not a very good one too.
Yeah.
That was chaotic. But
I saw it coming. I mean, come on, you got 3 Danes in the team. Like it was bound to happen if they didn't get results posted up very soon.
Just not like that. I didn't see.
Yeah, nobody saw it coming like that. But
yeah,
like I thought a change was gonna come, and so a change has come. They have Config, Cajun, Gade, Snappy, and Yugi. And now, where do you want to start with this? Because there's a lot of interesting things to look at. But you said you saw some of their games before you started this.
Yeah, well, I tried, but I'm gonna write off those results because what I realized afterwards is that they have been playing even though they have nothing to play for.
Yeah.
So they were playing EPL where they had already qualified and they forfeited their games.
Okay, yeah.
They forfeited some of their games, and so it was just like the results don't like. And they only played 2 maps before they went to the LAN. I don't think they're gonna show anything in those maps, so we can write off those results. But talking about the team generally, I think that this is the first time that you're going to look at Snappy as an in-game leader and say like, okay, well, this is like, you need to show something, right? Like we can always write off results when you have, for an in-game leader, when you have a worse roster.
Yeah.
Like you say, oh, like, Heroic looks good, but you know, they have a pretty shit roster overall, or not great. So we're going to give you points every time you win something, and we're not going to reduce points every time you lose something, because that would make sense. You have a bad roster.
Yeah.
I think this is a good roster. So if Snappy does poorly, like now, this is going to hurt his reputation, and same for Yugi. Like, so I think this is the first like very real test in Counter-Strike, or in CSGO, sorry, for these players. But I think this is a legit roster. Like, this is a top 10 potential roster, and they should be judged as such, as if they're going to be a top 10 roster.
Yeah, because basically you have Config, who is he was a superstar. I think it's just at star level. I'm not really sure what the differentiation would be, except like basically as a superstar you just show up every game and blast the shit out of people, whereas like a star, like you can have days off, right?
Right.
Cajun, yeah. I haven't seen him play rifle, but I assume he's going to play rifle here.
He is, yeah, and he's pretty good.
Yeah,
he did in the old OpTic lineup. He did relatively well. He did worse when he was in game leading, but relatively.
Yes, I'd imagine so.
Yeah, but he did pretty well. He's a pretty good rifler.
Gade, completely new. I have no clue if he's good or not, and I've never seen him at LAN, so that makes it an even bigger question mark. And as far as we know, during the coup d'etat, he might have been one of the guys that was going to get taken out in the Reign of Terror, but has survived. But now he knows he was about to get taken out in the Reign of Terror. So now there's even more pressure on this guy. So, like, this guy is... well... Because basically Gage should realize, like, if things go badly, he's the first guy out.
Yeah, he is the first guy out. That's almost certain. Because... Not least because, like, you could also remove Cajun, but... you're probably going to want to keep Cajun because of the role that he plays and his veteran status, even though they're probably similar around in terms of performance. So yeah, that is a problem. But at the same time, I feel like it's less of a problem now because you can look at that OpTic roster and say that he's pretty firmly the third fragger. He's supposed to be the third fragger. So
like, you say that, but like I have this theory. And here's my theory: is because Snappy has come into OpTic. I think Snappy is thinking, you know what would make this team sick? Is if I got that guy from North, that guy that used to play with me. His name was Valde.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Not gonna happen.
Well, so I know Snappy, as we talk quite a bit, and that's not gonna happen for reasons that will go undisclosed. I don't think that.
I guess it would have to be like a desperation moment.
Yeah, well, things change over time. I just don't think so. What's public is that at some point in time when like before, because you remember Valde was kind of kicked before he joined North for like 6 months or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Something weird.
And the public information is that they had like a difference in calling philosophy, and so because Valde is a very vocal player, right? Like he calls quite a bit on North as well, and so they see the game differently. So. You know, they're not going to be together. I don't think that anyone from North is going to join OpTic or maybe the other way around. But I think the only possible one I could see would be like Kirby. But because North spent so much money on Kirby, that's probably also not going to happen.
Yeah. So, listen, everybody on North is fucking desperate at this point, man. Like, I'd imagine everybody would be desperate.
Yeah, but if I'm Snappy, I'm not desperate. I'm looking at
Snappy is not
enjoying
desperate.
their suffering.
Like Snappy is probably thinking, maybe there are plenty of other players I guess you can replace Gade with, but he'll probably run this first. And then your boy Yugi, the guy who you said was at some point was like a top 2 opera. It might be top 3. I forgot the
No,
exact
that was
number.
that. Well, I think that he's a very good opera.
A very good opera.
Yes.
Was it Woxic he said was top 2 or top 3 then? I forget.
Yeah, I said Woxic is the second best opera in the world.
Yeah, but of course that was before like Guardian went crazy and Device had that crazy form. So obviously like that's a caveat there. And
but I think that he's as good as Device.
Yeah. Different style, different team though. So it's always a bit hard to compare.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So Device is more dynamic in terms of, and he's more relied on in terms of the opening round. While Woxic, he can do that, but he's also going to be used kind of stuff as a crutch for the team.
Yeah,
probably because they need more of a crutch on Hellraisers, so he'll anchor bomb sites and stuff like that. But I think that he's like the only reason Guardian's a weird one because Guardian is
exceptional
not used
sometimes.
But he's not used as a star player.
Yeah.
On phase, or at least he wasn't in the Olaf lineup, and so it's like if you're playing like it's the same thing with Fawn. Like if you're playing connector all the time, then like Arch. If you're playing Arch all the time on Inferno, like just not gonna have that much. Like it doesn't matter who you are. Like Cold Zero was opping on Arch for a while, and he wasn't doing very much. Like just because half the rounds you're gonna get smoked out, and you're gonna get bullied out, and you're not gonna go for the retake, and so you're just fucking useless. Like, and so it's difficult you don't see very much, and so like last year it was easier to rate Guardian highly on the base of that because there weren't that many good operas. But when you have other operas like Simple or Device doing incredible, it's hard to rate Guardian that or give him credit for something that he hasn't done. But he was fucking amazing at this event.
He kind of sniped the shit out of Device, man. So
he also shat on Device.
Yeah,
so
that's pretty good. That's pretty good in my opinion.
Keep an eye on. Yeah, he's probably. We'll look at how his form is, but on this form, he's the second best opera after.
And of course, Simple's the best opera, probably the best rifler too, as far as I can tell.
Yes.
Pretty disgusting player, all things considered. So, here's the thing. I feel like... I think I might have told you this theory before, but I actually wanted Snappy to go from Heroic to NIP. This was before... this was before the Dentist trade, right? Because I was thinking he should replace Exists at the time, but...
Yeah. He could. I mean, you have to convince players like Forrest to do and Draken to do like, strategic things.
I feel like you could do it with Forrest because Forrest did it under threat.
That's true. No, that's a great point. Yeah, that's a really good point.
But I don't know if you could do it with Draken. Like Draken's like he's a bit young.
Yeah, I feel like Snappy seems like the kind of, and maybe this is just Danish in game. They like players that make smart plays.
And Draken is not one of them. Is that what you're saying?
No. So I think that but when Draken makes good plays, they're not necessarily plays that are, like high IQ plays.
Yeah.
So I think that they much prefer players like Yugi that have they're going to make a smarter decision most of the time.
Like Device, Dupree's at Nyx, the classic Danes.
Yeah, I mean, that's very Danish, isn't it? So I think that would be very frustrating to see Forrest push through 3 smokes, or to see Draken just randomly push it to 5 blocks with an SMG or something like that.
Yeah, but I feel like that's actually the weakness of the Danes in general, is they're not willing to put in a wildcard element into their best teams.
I think, okay, so I have a theory about this. So I think that they do. I just think that the players the players that they use them for aren't good at that. So, for example, I think that they do let Device be a wildcard player on this Astralis lineup. He does, Device does anything he wants on his team, but Device isn't the kind of player that's going to do, that's going to unleash himself and do crazy shit all the time, right?
Yeah.
So Device as a player, as a rifler, and as an opera will just never be Simple or Draken or Kenny S. He's not going to do crazy shit. That's just not the kind of player he is.
But here's the things. You don't necessarily need your superstar to be that player.
No. But what I mean is that you have a player, but they don't have one. They have one now. They have one now.
In who?
Magisk is like that.
Oh, Magus, yeah, Magus.
But he doesn't have the freedom to do it right now. But they don't need it. They don't need it right now.
Obviously, they don't need it now. They're the best team. So, what's the point of changing it up if you don't need to?
But they have this added element now that if they want to, if they start struggling, if they're making top 4s and all that, they can try to give much more freedom to Magisk on certain maps. Like Overpass is the obvious
Yeah.
one. You can just let him do whatever he wants, and he's going to give a new dimension to your CT side immediately. So they have a player like that now. It's just a question of whether Glaive wants to use him that way or not.
Yeah. That's actually why I wanted Config in Astralis instead of Magus.
Me too.
Because I even had him playing the exact same role too, but just like Config go fucking crazy, right? Because that would have been amazing. But apparently, like Config's personality makes it seem like it'd be pretty hard to work with.
Yeah, but so then again, Magis got kicked from North because of his personality.
Same thing.
Well.
So maybe they're the same type of person.
But he seems a lot more mature now.
Yeah.
To be fair, like, but
he saw the depths of hell that was OpTic.
Yes, I think that this turned out to be the right move, because if you were using Config, you probably want him in Dupree's role, not Magis's role.
That's fair, maybe.
And Dupree is worse than Magis in Magis's role.
Mm-hmm.
So as like this sort of control player, as a supporting CT player to device and stuff like that, he's worse. So I would prefer Magis to be like a very strong player and as a control player, and a very strong entry in Dupree, rather than an excellent entry in a pretty good control player.
Yeah.
Like, so I think they have a great balance. They have an amazing roster right now.
Yeah, right now. I guess we will talk. I think that's covered the three teams I wanted to talk about. So, in general, what do you think of this event? I think it's pretty clear cut. Astralis win. Am I off?
Yeah, well, that was last event as well.
Still made it to the finals. Still almost won the finals 3-0. It's like it hasn't really changed my mind, has it?
No, that's true. I think that I just don't. I think that every event that Astralis goes to, they're going to be worse.
Okay.
Because that's the pattern that we've seen out of Astralis after roster moves before. Because what they do when they do roster moves is that they take out all the strats and they build it back up again, right, with the new player. They teach him, okay, we're going to do this and this and this. So they have this giant edifice of strats. And eventually, slowly, they start to get figured out by the other teams, and the other teams start seeing Astralis as predictable. And when they know what Astralis is going to do, a lot of players specifically can take advantage of individual player tendencies, and they can counter them pretty effectively. So I think that every event that we're going to see, until like Astralis have like 3 weeks or something to redo their strats, they're going to get weaker and weaker. So it becomes more like it's more dangerous that they'll be upset here than it was at Sydney.
Yeah, and at Sydney they were already upset. So
yeah, but that was like that was a one-off. Like if you play that 9 times or 10 times, and they win 9 times. So I think that, for example, if they play FaZe again, they're less likely to win this time than they were last time.
Yeah.
If they play Liquid, Liquid have a chance.
Yeah.
Mouse don't have a chance. Like the biggest advantage that Astralis have right now is that
the field
the second best team
weak
in the world is. No, but it's just like the second best team
is bad against them.
Yeah, because Astralis can veto Mirage.
Yeah.
And get fucked.
Pretty great, isn't it? What
a life, seven map pool.
Yeah.
But also Astralis stylistically, they
outmatch Mouse anyway.
Yeah, well, they're quite good at letting Mouse come to them, because Mouse. So Astralis are vulnerable to like during intra-execute plays. Yeah. So like let's say that you're going through an execute and then someone sits in a smoke or something, they'll get caught off guard by stuff like that. But if they know that you're going to push for map control or something like that, they're really good at adapting to that. So that kind of opening, not mid-round aggression. And Mouse really rely on that opening aggression. So they absolutely, like, in almost every matchup, Mouse have the first kill advantage, and that's how they carry themselves to victory. Against Astralis, they had, like, 35% of the opening kills. They absolutely got dominated. If they were just beating into Astralis, who knew exactly what they were going to do. So that's their biggest advantage. Because let's say if Liquid was in the same form as Mouse, I would be comfortable saying that Liquid has a chance. And maybe Liquid does have a chance. We haven't seen them.
We haven't seen them in a while, right?
Yeah. So, but I think FaZe could be able to beat them, and maybe NRG. I don't know, because they played them close once. But I think Liquid is probably the one you're looking at, where you're like, yeah, this team
Has so
Liquid
much
can actually,
potential as always.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. I guess they've never really done well
I mean,
ever.
they've done well in spurts, but it's like they've never they've
But
never pushed past
no,
into what I thought they could become.
yeah, but this is the roster. Like I think that they have.
Everything
I
they
For
want.
a while I found that they had too many like riflers.
Yeah.
But now Naf is he's a passive player generally, but he has an aggressive streak to him.
Mm-hmm.
So like he's pretty passive, but he'll make aggressive plays sometimes,
Yeah, because he's like
which
a
is
very
great.
all-around player, but he understands
Yeah,
when he has to go like deep.
yeah. And Nitro's an aggressive player, Taco's an aggressive player, Alicia's a passive player, and Twist can do both.
Yeah.
So I think that this is just this is a perfect roster. The only thing that's not perfect is maybe Nitro can't in-game lead to the same
Maybe
extent.
Twist
Like,
wants to main op. Like
is Twist main opping right now?
he main opt at the tournament before this. I forget the last land they went to, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And then I think Dust told me, yeah, he wants to main op one day. I was like, oh my fucking god.
Yeah, I don't like that because he's so good.
He has such great first aim, right? So it's like, why are you wasting up my time and your time with this? And then I realized, wait a second, his fucking mentor is Nitro. Oh god damn it!
Right,
Like he went through the exact same problem.
What would be nice for Liquid is if they didn't do a main op, but they still used it frequently. So I don't know, like you can run strats with the AWP, but you sort of
like
only do it half the time. Like you create strategies around the 5 rifles, but like sometimes you get NAF to rifle. You get NAF to go with twists in mid, and you push with an AWP or something like that, and that'd be nice. But I think that they're like, if Twist is a main opera, they're worse than if they're just 5 riflers.
Here's my problem with when I obviously Twist cannot op. He's not allowed to op. Should never be allowed to op. Just like literally ban him. Like if you can like hard code it into his game, so he cannot buy the op like somebody else. Like I guess the only problem is there are times that he have to drop it, but beyond that, like
you have 3 hybrids, you don't need 1 main.
Yeah, like the way I see this team is like, even during the times when like Nitro was main opping, like randomly the most effective was he was still entry fragging with the main op, but instead of using the op, he was using the CZ. So it's like just do that. Just you can use the op, but like when you actually go in, just let Nitro entry frag with the CZ anyway or whatever. I think it works out way better for them.
I think it's better. To be fair, it's better if Nitro is doing that than Twist, because Twist is more important to Liquid's default than Nitro is, and so you lose more out of every default with Twist on the AWP than you do with Nitro. So this is actually a pretty important event for Liquid, just because I haven't seen them in a while. They've had a long time to practice, so we will see how they do, right? And I think this could be this is the time for them, right? Like there's no
this was the time for them for like the last 6 months.
Yeah, but but especially now, like the field is so weak. That,
that's true.
They should be as good as Mouse Sports. They have no excuse not to be as good as Mouse Sports and Fnatic. Like they should be part of that top 4 easily.
Yeah.
And so this is actually I didn't realize until we talked, but I guess this is really the team, like the most pivotal team here.
Yeah. Like
they could win this event, they could bomb out, and this is going to define the scene, whatever they do here.
Yeah.
That's very sad.
I will point out something funny, because we missed this when we were talking about Astralis, but you're talking about how the reason they fall off is because they become predictable, and the reason they become predictable is because people study them, right, over time. And there's nobody that studies Astralis more than Kerrigan, because as far as I know, Kerrigan's actually obsessed with beating the shit out of Astralis. Like according to this Rain interview, according to every game I've ever watched of Kerrigan, we're like, Kerrigan goes up a level every time he plays against Astralis. I don't know why, but it happens. It's real.
Well, it's interesting. That rivalry is really interesting because Leigh's probably a better in-game leader than
Kerrigan.
Than Kerrigan. But what's fun is that Kerrigan got kicked because they had a different philosophy on the game.
Yeah.
Right. And so whenever FaZe beat Astralis, it's kind of like, Kerrigan's philosophy of the game is being vindicated. Like, what do you think of my loose style now, bitch?
Yeah,
And
I
like,
love it, and
so I mean, I love Kerrigan. So I think that that's kind of what's going
and
on. Like,
and I do think like
just,
I do agree like Glaive is probably the best in-game leader we have in the scene, but like Kerrigan does have like aspects of his like leadership that can't be replicated by any other in-game leader right now. Specifically like specifically man management.
Yeah,
Like
that's tough.
that's a hard one, but like has anybody in the history of CS:GO gotten this many star players from this many countries and gotten them to work together? Like I can't think of any.
No, so that's a good point, but I also think that Kerrigan seems to have issues in terms of like longevity. Like,
Yeah, but
so
I actually don't think that's a problem. Just because I actually think rosters naturally die out in 6 to 9 months anyway.
that's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's like not even a weakness to me. That's like, well, that's how CS:GO seems to work.
Yeah, I guess it's just like you'd rather that Kerrigan stay in the team than he's the one getting kicked. You'd rather oh, let's say Olaf Meister gets kicked even though he didn't get kicked, rather than Kerrigan gets kicked, because that way he keeps the roster. Like for example, like even though the Astralis roster died out, it wasn't Glaive that lost the faith of the team, right? It was Kirby,
Yeah.
who I guess left, but should have been kicked anyway. So like whatever. So I guess so. I mean, the thing with Kerrigan is that he seems to be really good at implementing a sort of simple style that works for any team. Like,
Yeah,
just
like,
kind of a cookie cutter.
like
Okay,
he could,
right off the bat.
like
We'll
the
do
thing
what-
about him is like he figures out every player and how to instantly get them to work, which is really rare. Like Glaive did it like twice with Rubino and Dennis, but has anybody done it with like 4 different players instantly?
Yeah, well, to be fair, I wouldn't give credit to Glaive for that, because I think Glaive just said, okay, do whatever.
Yeah, do whatever you want, Dennis. Like Dennis is
Yeah.
pretty sick. I won't give him as much credit for Dennis one. I think he did pretty good with Rubino though.
Well, considering Rubino now, I guess so. But so for Kerrigan, it's true that, like, for example, Rain has never been as good as he has
Without Kerrigan.
under Kerrigan, ever. So I guess so. And Nico about the same as he was on Mouse.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So he plays a simple.
He resurrected Guardian and Olaf Meister. Like
yeah, that's true.
Resurrected Kiyoshima.
Yeah,
like
really
he's
that's
resurrected Alu. Yeah. Like he seems to do well. I don't like that's why I think like if you're just talking about man management, he's the best because like he's resurrected so many players.
But I feel like the other thing with Kerrigan is that because of the style that he chooses to play, his win conditions are sort of limited. Like,
yeah, that's true.
He like oftentimes his maps, the way that his teams play maps, feel like kind of like Space Soldiers. Like I just feel like what the fuck are you? Like what you're just running into a brick wall over and again, running defaults, and it's just like pretty upsetting. I think that so I think they played a little too simple to be like an amazing, or rather like a dominant era team.
Yeah.
I don't think that Kerrigan's ever going to have a team where he's the only shot caller, he's the only player creating tactics.
But
where
I don't think that's a problem necessarily because like
it's just disappointing.
Like listen, like think about it this way, right? Last year I'd say we had like the 4 best in-game leaders of last year were Fallen, Glaive, MSL, Kerrigan, right? Like I don't know if you agree or disagree with that, but among those 4 players, only two of them were only truly solo callers, MSL and Glaive.
Yeah,
because Fallen had Cold Zera, right?
And everyone calls on Fizz.
Yeah. So and so I don't actually necessarily think it's a problem. My problem with like Kerrigan is like his style is such that he will always end up in this trap. Where like basically like because he needs these he's able to like use these skilled players better than most other people. He ends up with a bunch of them, but these skilled players need a certain amount of space. I'm not talking about just like in game, but also in the philosophy of the team, of how they control the team, how they play out the team. So like we're talking about like Kerrigan in this particular phase. Like they play simple stuff, but is that really a conscious decision by Kerrigan saying as like a
I guess it's
king,
just
or is it just because he's like literally has to like negotiate with these guys? This is how we're gonna play, and because he knows these guys like to play this way, they're into it. But then when they get into trouble, they're like, Kerrigan, please call us a super tactical strat. Like, well, you haven't practiced this kind of style for like 1 billion years. Like, what are you expecting?
I guess so, but I think it's also they don't have really clutch calls.
That's
Like,
true too.
I think that some teams have the kind of, I don't know what it is about some teams, but some teams just seem to make calls that just like when they make them able to grind stuff out, like you just need a couple of rounds. Okay, fuck it. Like we're just gonna, rush it, like in or out or an A train or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that. Okay, that may. So like the famous Glaive thing with the Tech Nines,
Or
they
what
seem
Zeus
to
did,
be,
yeah.
yeah. You seem to sometimes you just get the right call and it's just a right read or just a smart, simple play that just works out. And it doesn't seem like, obviously on the Inferno map in the major, it looked really bad because of that one time they ran out of time. And I think the calling, I don't know who was calling there, that was really bad. But generally speaking, it feels like they're not able to grind out rounds through calls the same way that other teams are. And I think that has cost them many titles.
Yeah.
So, and that seems to be a feature of Kerrigan throughout time.
That is a feature, but like obviously, there's like other really weird problems in phase too. Like there are so many. Like you could probably write a treatise about like all the various different problems that have occurred throughout this particular phase, because their expectations were so ridiculously high, but like they've never really reached them, in my opinion.
Well, I think this. Like, I wrote an article that got lambasted when I thought that the old phase with Kyo and Alu was just as good as the one with Olaf and Rain.
Like, it's different, but like it had. Here's the things. Like, it's wrong in the sense like if you're talking about the first dimension of like pure raw skill, obviously this phase is better.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about like the breadth of it, there's an argument.
I was talking about results. Like, I was like,
oh, just results. Yeah.
For those two teams, like one of them had reached every final, and one of them didn't.
Yeah.
So, like, they look more dominant when they win, but I don't think that they're
like that's
like as consistent.
That's an interesting one, just because like if you think about the old phase, like with Kiyoshima, it's pretty clear like they weren't like pure tactical, but they had more structure to the team because they had a guy like Kiyoshima. And without him, like they've kind of lost that. Like that's why they don't play Nuke anymore.
Right. I don't know if they. See, I'd have to look to see if they just straight up use fear strats. But I think one of the things is when you have like sort of supportive anchor players, they make smarter decisions, and so you just kind of innately begin to, like, let's say they'll choose to back off more often than someone else will, like Olaf Meisters will, and so you're going to just be in a position where you rely more on retakes than you would otherwise, and so you just like. Innately, you just rely on smart play more than you would if you're just constantly trying to find duels, right?
Yeah.
I think that was a thing also with Alu, because Alu took fewer duels, like fewer aggressive duels, like way less than Guardian. So I think that they were just put in positions where they would need to play in a way that looks more fundamentally sound. And I think that was good. Like I think, I guess it's kind of their anchor position is sort of confused right now. But like you just have, if you have on one side, you have Nico who takes, I mean, thank God he does because it's amazing, but he takes every aim duel when he's an anchor. And then on the other side, you have Kiyoshima who probably will be more passive. Like you don't have Stewie 2K as your inner anchor on train, right?
Yes.
Like you don't have Stewie 2K who's going to be fucking ham. You're going to have someone more passive. It creates more of a balance. I think they lack that balance now. Like they don't have a single passive player on that team.
Yeah.
Like so. Anyway, maybe Guardian's the closest to passive.
Yes, the closest to passive. I guess exists now because he's in the team, but like, yeah. But
I don't think exists is that.
He's not really that passive, is he?
No. So yeah, they have a weird team, but.
But it's working now. I mean, they finally got their win, right? So. Yeah.
First of the year. I mean, that was pathetic. Like I'm upset by that. Like I really like Guardian. I really like Kerrigan, so I'm happy whenever they win. But it was upsetting to me that they won that tournament instead of all the other fucking tournaments they could have won. Like,
hey man, I am Katowice. Like fucking Flesha was insane. But
that was so upsetting.
The fact that they couldn't close it out before like got to train was pretty bad. All right.
Yeah, I mean it's just upsetting that they won when they're basically the worst they've been in like a year or a year and a half.
It just says so much about that team, doesn't it? It says so much about that team.
Yeah. That's true. It does. Yeah. They could win this event. Like they're a contender for this event just because last, but they just looked like such shit for the rest of the event.
But like it's like the chances of them falling out before the finals is pretty high.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. Like if you meet Mouse, like I think there's like a 60-70% chance.
Like I guess it really depends on Oscar if they met Mouse, because like Oscar is so like feast or famine sometimes.
Yes.
So
Yes, I'm very opinionated about that. Yeah,
like
I think.
actually I agree with you. Like I know you said something like Sunny is the best player on Mouse. I think that's right. But the
Yeah.
difference is like I still think Oscar has like the highest ceiling. It's just like
Yeah, he
Oscar is
does.
like
Yeah.
so feast and famine. Like, can you really count on that? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they have Mouse are weird because they have two players that are really good that aren't reliable. So Rops is an
Rob's
amazing player.
yeah, but he's also like inexperienced.
Right. So, but he does have moments where he kind of
He's similar to Oscar, but it's just
yeah,
not as pronounced because he doesn't get the op.
but I don't think that Rops is like because Rops plays a reliable role. It's just sometimes he isn't reliable in that role.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now he's playing like a semi-anchor role for them, which is very weird. But I think that he'll become more reliable. I don't think it's like innate to him. I just think it's his age.
Whereas it is
But
innate to
is
Oscar.
Yeah, Oscar's a problem. Like in that sense, he's a problem child.
But I mean, he's so good and so bad and so good though, right? That's such a problem.
To me, he's just like a better version of Draken. But like Oscar misses a lot of shots.
Yeah, he does.
Like,
but when he hits all the shots, it's like Jesus Christ, can anybody stop this guy?
But to me, I've always rewarded consistency for oppers.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's two things that I like in an opper. One that they play aggressively, or at least assertively. So that's why I don't like players like JDM or Skadoodle.
Okay.
And then that I like that they're consistent, which is why I don't like players like Oscar or Draken.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that you just can't miss that many shots. Like,
but
because especially like Mouse have so many strats that rely on Oscar hitting shots.
Yeah, they do.
That you just need him to be present if you want to win most maps.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a miracle that they actually went as far as they did in this tournament. Like they all they did was lose maps to Astralis, right?
Yeah.
I think, and I mean obviously you're gonna lose maps to Astralis, but otherwise like it's impressive to me that they could even win things without Oscar going around because it's so important to that team.
Like yeah, like basically I feel like Oscar's like best role might be 3. Basically, where like the way I think of it is like your 2 star players, your 1 and a 2, have to be very consistent.
Yeah.
But like your third guy is allowed to be fucking crazy, and that's where I think Oscar would naturally fall. But like obviously the way this mouse works, like Oscar is 1, so it's like it's very hard.
Well, the thing is that you don't want your opera to be number 3.
Yeah, but like
you want your opera to be number 2.
Yeah, but like he consistently like he isn't that good though. Like
no, but I think it would be fine if Mouse had like tactics where they were like, okay, we have set strats for when Oscar. If you're feeling it, we'll do these strats. If you're not feeling it, we'll do other things, and that those other things were also effective.
If you ever watched like by the numbers, like basically every time they're like fucking Oscar's so weird. Like I don't know if I get the feeling Oscar doesn't even know when he's gonna go off sometimes.
No, so the thing is that they don't have that. They have really amazing strats, but they rely very heavily on Oscar and Chris J. So when Oscar and Chris J, especially Oscar, aren't on, like they lose most of their strats first point of contact.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's just gonna die, and they don't have like you can't go okay, Oscar, you've died 2 rounds in a row, so we're just gonna play passive now. They're not good at that.
Yeah,
like you lose most of what you're good at if you do that, and so they have they have. In that way, they're one-dimensional.
They got to ride or die, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So they don't have the fundamental mid-round call and effective trading.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, all of the mid-round, I don't think they're good enough in the mid-round to afford someone so inconsistent as their primary point of contact in the entry or in the early round. So I just think that Oscar puts a hard cap on how good mouse sports can be.
Mm-hmm.
It would need Woxic to be better than they are now.
All right.
But if they get Woxic, they might be worse. So
who knows?
You don't know how it goes.
It's a gamble, right? So,
Yeah.
all right,
Well, having Oscar yourself is a gamble,
it's
right?
it's a fun gamble. I'll like outside of like the idea of winning, just watching Oscar play is like really fun. Just because
That's
like
true. It is.
you
It
have
is
you have no
really,
clue what's
it's
gonna
really fun
happen.
play.
You have
Yeah,
no clue what's gonna
that's true.
happen. Um, all right, so I guess the last topic is going to be, let's go with SK. All right, and instead of talking about how shit they are, I'm gonna ask you a different question. I'm gonna ask you, when this team breaks up, and because I actually think it's gonna break up. Like I know Sean Gayers thinks like it's like they're a few steps away, but like there are too many weird problems in this team, in my opinion.
So it can be both. Like they are a few steps away.
But like they can never get
Uh,
those steps.
well, it just seems implausible that. Like, so one of the big problems is that they have really bad second halves, especially T halves, but not exclusively T halves. But like that's just a weird problem. Like who the fuck just burns out like after 15 rounds? Just 15 rounds, you're dominant. After 15 rounds, just okay, now you're shit.
All team liquid, but yes.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But no, but that was like choking, right? But
Yeah.
SK's not choking. Like they're just playing shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that at this point in time, it's almost like you're suffering from you've been bad, and so even though you're not that bad, you feel like you're shit, and so you're changing in-game leader. Fallen wants to focus on his own game, and all these things so that it's clear that the losing has taken a toll on them. Yeah, it's taken a toll on them, and I think that because of that, it's problematic. Like if they were right where they are now and they hadn't played with this roster yet and they hadn't been bad for like 3 months before they made this roster change, I would say, they'll recover and they'll be good. But like changed in game leader, Fallen's depressed, everyone's depressed.
Change language for 4 out of the 5 players.
Yeah. So
Bolts knows he's literally about to be kicked any single moment.
See, to me that's disappointing because I wrote an article when it got released or when the news got released, and I thought that it was I thought it was going to work, but clearly I was partially wrong because it works.
You were
only
optimistic.
half the time.
You were optimistic.
Well, I just what I did is I saw a stylistic possibility because I thought that Stewie 2K was well rounded enough to do more than people thought he would be able to do. But that hasn't been their problem. Their problem has been that they can't get coordinated, right?
Yeah.
And that has nothing to do with style. That's just.
I mean, I'm not sure when you wrote that, but I'm pretty sure it was before everybody realized they were speaking in English. Now, if you knew they were speaking English, would you have believed that? Like, I don't think you would have.
Well, I just didn't think about it, right? I was just thinking about it solely in the lens of
Stewie?
Of style.
Yes,
I was thinking like, oh no, like if you look at the roles and the tendencies of the players, no, this makes sense. But I wasn't thinking more like pragmatically, like, oh well, are they going to be able to push and have coordinated flashbangs? Because to me, I assume that a professional team will be able to do that, but like that's clearly been.
I didn't think so because like. Obviously, I didn't write about it, but like when I heard like they were going to English, like okay, I'm out. I'm out on this team because if you think about classic SK, like any of the iterations before this, it's always been about incredible teamwork.
Yeah.
Right. And like,
no, it has. But like, I didn't know. Like, even if you think about it, like all those players can speak English, so it makes sense. But it just seems like it makes sense that they'd be able to transfer all right. Like not quite as good because they can't be quite as fast, but still fine. But whatever's going on, like they just can't get on the same page.
Yeah, and like they kicked the guy like who was like famously was willing to change a bunch like Taco basically.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that even hurt them, but it's like it certainly didn't help them. I'll put it that way.
No, well I think I don't know. It's just like they just look like they're
lost.
They're yeah. So it's just like they all have a thing in their head, but they don't have the same plan. They're not playing the same strats. Like it's just a weird thing where like there's this famous thing where like Stewie pushed CT but and someone flashed him in, but the flash was way too early, and then a second flash came in because the person was like, oh shit, that was way too early. Mm-hmm. But Stewie had already crossed, and so it flashed him and he died. It's like,
yeah.
That was so whatever happened there to make that happen just made them lose a round, and it was garbage. So if SK can't play on the same page, they lose one of the main things about their style, right? And that means that none of their players can be as effective as they are normally, mm-hmm. because they rely, at least Coldzera, relies very heavily on information to make them play, and it's just like anyway. So that I don't think that this roster will do much.
Yes.
I hope they do, because if they do, the point that's exciting is that if they do well, they'll do really, really well. But
it's a big if you're asking.
Yeah, so if they get coordinated, which shouldn't be a big ask out of any other team, really, but if you can get coordinated, if you could play a little bit more like Space Soldiers.
Jesus Christ.
That should be, if SK can play a little more like Space Soldiers, they'll be fine. But I think that whatever's going on, whether it's like heavy depression or communication, something's going on that makes this roster seem doomed to fail.
Because, like, Coldzera is fucking crazy. Like, as far as apparently, like, it's been leaking out, like, this guy's, like, crazy ambitious. He's kind of like Michael Jordan. He's like, get on my level or get the fuck out kind of player, right? But if you're losing this bad, like, my impression, my instinct, I guess, is this team's going to break up. So my actual question was going to be, where would you put each of these players, assuming this team breaks up? Because I think the natural progression would be, like, Bolts is completely done. Because he's looked so bad here. Like, he's going to have to rebuild his career a second time.
Yeah.
Stewie 2K is probably going to go back to Cloud9. They're going to kick Skadoodle, maybe. That's my guess.
Yeah. No, that would make sense. Yeah.
But I can't. But for the last three, I don't know if, for instance, like maybe two of the three, maybe they stick together. Maybe it's Fallen Fur. Maybe it's Fallen Coldzera. Maybe it's Fur Coldzera. But they're going to split up, I think. And where would you put them? That's my question. Where would you put these three?
I would. That's really interesting. I would put. Here, let me look at the top the rankings just so I make an educated decision.
Sure.
I think the first one that comes to mind is I would replace Rops with Coldzera.
Okay, makes sense.
That would be really sexy. You could try to replace Rain with Fur, because
they play the exact same style.
Yeah, Fur was just a better Rain, but not this year's. So that's kind of risky. Probably wouldn't do that. I would replace. Here's a good one, actually. I would replace Golden and JW with Fallen and Fur.
That's pretty good.
Because I don't think that JW is a very effective control player.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a natural opper, and he's not capable of doing that right now. I don't know why, but he said in an interview that he just because of the way it works in the team that he can't op much right now. I think that you remove JW's role as a control player and you put in Fur, and so now you don't have an opper, but you do have an opper because you're replacing Golden with Fallen. So now you have an opper, and you have a probably better in-game leader.
All right.
And you still have Crims.
So here's my question though, from Fnatic's point of view. Sure, maybe you could maybe you can gamble and get these two Brazilian players to speak English and you speak English. Maybe you could do that. But they also have another choice. And the other choice I'm talking about obviously is like FaZe is probably going to break up too.
I don't know if FaZe is going to break up because they're still waiting for.
Because here's my hypothetical situation. They come back with Olaf Meister. They find out, we still can't win finals. Do you get one of the FaZe players? I know they wanted to play with Rain. I know they want to play with Olaf Meister.
Yeah, they should get Rain if they're not. Yeah, they should get Rain before Fur. But I would get. See, you could get Rain and Fallen.
Okay.
Fnatic. That would be probably the best case scenario for that team. Also, obviously, you get Nico instead of Lecro. But you're asking why don't we take all the best players? Why don't we get Rain, Fallen, and Nico?
I'm pretty sure FaZe is gonna keep Nico no matter what the fuck happens. Yeah. He's like a once in a generation player, right? So. Yeah,
I think that the parallel roles would be JW, Lecro, Nico.
Mm-hmm.
It might be just a case of FaZe picking up Flusha and Crims, right? That would be great. What if you replace?
I did say this at the beginning of the year. I thought, remember when Astralis bombed the major? I said something along the lines of, this is the time when FaZe has to break the bank and get Zipnix. Yeah,
that would be ideal for them. That would help a lot. I think. I mean, Zipnix is just so good right now.
Yeah. So because I feel like he would have solved a lot of their problems.
But at the same time, I think that he would have. But I think that they would still lack.
Maybe they would still lack something, but I think it's
tactical diversity.
Yeah, that would still be there, but the other problems would be a lot of them would go away at that point, right?
But the roster would be composed, yeah. Yeah, it would be welcome. Yeah, that's true. That's one other thing. See, I don't think that the Navi players speak English at all.
Oh, also, I've completely forgot about that, but maybe Simple comes in like 3 months. Do you think SK survive that long?
3 months. They should. I mean, normally they don't have. You don't have major roster changes between majors, right? Like you have it at the after the major.
After the major, or like before the major qualifiers start.
Yeah. So if you have it right after the major, I don't see how I don't see how they're good with Simple. Like I see how Simple is good with his team.
Look,
I just don't see.
Look, I listen. I'm pretty sure Fallen is like everybody else in the world. Is like, I don't know how it's gonna work, but it's fucking simple. It's gotta work somehow. Just like how Simple has worked in every Liquid lineup, and Hellraisers, and Flipside, and Navi now. Like everybody's thinking in their mind, he's so good. It's gotta work somehow.
I mean, I think Simple will do very well in SK, but it's just like if SK can't play fundamentally sound rounds and close out rounds, then how does it help? It's the same problem with Navi now. Like you can only, without proper team play and proper players that don't make mistakes around Simple, how are you supposed to close out the rounds where he gets 3 kills or 2 kills? Like you're gonna lose a lot of those rounds.
That's actually an interesting point, because if you just think about teams like that, teams that are composed and whatnot, like, is there a team that could actually work around Simple that exists?
Yeah, I think there's a few. I think Fnatic would work around Simple. Old SK from the last 2 years.
Before this year, yes, but we can't time travel.
Yeah.
If we could time travel, maybe he could work on Virtus Pro for all we know. But like,
yeah, but I think that but like even just stylistically, not mentally, Astralis or that kind of team, where Astralis can close out a 5v3 very well, right?
Yeah.
So I think the problem is that when you have a player like Edward and a player like Zeus,
too many holes in the ship.
No, but you just like it's not just that they're bad, like, because I think that they're both not very good players, but I don't think Zeus is like such a bad player that he's a massive liability.
I think Edward
but you
is.
do have but I do think Edward is. But when you have 2 players that just make so many mistakes, I think that you're going to lose a lot of like retakes or side defenses. And just like it's just no, like
I think Navi should just basically jack Edren. Just like
that's what we said on Writer's Block. We were just it should be Edren.
Like I think that's a slam dunk move, isn't it?
Yeah, Edren for Edward. I think it is. Like I think that would legitimately make that team world class immediately.
That would immediately put them in like danger of like straight up beating Astralis.
Yeah.
So
like I don't think Edren would be like a superstar in that role, but I think he would be like way better than Edward has been.
Yeah. And apparently he's a fucking genius, as long as he's not the main caller too. So
yeah, well, he's really good. I just don't think there would be space for him to be like a superstar on that team. But I do think
he doesn't need to be, right?
He would just play the role that Edward plays, but like a world class player.
Yeah,
which is exactly what you want. That would be a fucking amazing move. Like that would be so sexy. But I don't know why I feel like if that was a possibility, that would have happened already.
Listen, they just got to get a little bit more desperate. They got to be like, SK's got to knock on that door, like, okay, it's time for Simple to go. And then Navi's like, wait, we can get a Dren. You can stay.
The thing is, they're doing well right now. So like,
they're not doing well enough.
See, the thing is, Simple has to put pressure on the org, where he has to say like, hey, I'm going to leave. But the thing is, he's tried to do that, and Navi were like, nah.
It's true. Navi is pretty gangster like that.
If they just can't, like, if he hadn't signed that contract, if he signed like a 6 months contract, and he said, I'm going to re-sign if you have a roster that I find good, it's like, okay, what's the good? Replace fucking Edward with a Dren, and I'm sure they would do it then, but he didn't because he's too bloody nice a guy.
Old Simple wouldn't have let this happen. Old Simple would not have let this happen. Actually, Old Simple probably would have still signed a contract. Though it's like he wasn't that smart.
So everyone sends to evolve, but he's given us a worse Counter-Strike. How dare he?
Yeah.
Stealing skins.
Yeah, stealing skins. Old Simple. Bring back Old Simple, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. But anyway, the point is that would be a slam dunk move for sure.
Yeah.
Like they would be immediately close to Astralis.
All right.
So anyway, that'd be sexy.
Well, I think that covers it for this one. Anything else you wanted to shout out or anything?
I love Woxic.
Yeah.
There you go. That's it.
And I think this is the simple era. All right. See you guys later.